Hello, and welcome to another segment of Caregiver Chat TV. My name is Roslyn Anderson, and again, I want to just say welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about abuse and neglect, the ugly side of caregiving. Now, I have been in this thing called caregiving for over 30 years at this point. And we don't like to talk about caregiving that that it could ever be, right? Like a ugly side of caregiving. We want everything to be rainbows and butterflies and roses every time we mention the term caregiving in any capacity, whether it's from nursing all the way down to the stay-at-home mom. But the truth of the matter is there are some ugly things about any profession, and there are some ugly things about any field of care. And so I just want to take a little bit of time to go over some of those things that we just don't like to talk about or even want to think about, but it affects so many people, so many stakeholders, so many clients, so many parents that have to deal with those things, so many employers. So, again, I just want to welcome you to Caregiver Chat TV. What is Caregiver Chat TV? Our mission is dedicated to empowering caregivers through engaging and informative content that blends education with humor. I really think I'm funny. My husband calls me funny only a little bit of the time, but I really think I'm funny all of the time. However, our mission is to provide a supportive community where caregivers can learn about the latest news and best practices, earn continuing education with uh, continuing education units, and connect with others in the field. We strive to enhance the caregiving experience by offering resources that inspire growth, foster connections, and improve well being. Now, this training should cover about 2 hours of content if you kind of really dive into some things and really focus on some things. It should cover about 2 hours of content. So, most people don't know that April is Child Abuse Prevention Month and June is Elder Abuse Prevention Month. So, we're going to be just kind of talking a little bit about both, but not really getting into much of it in detail. But I just want to bring that to your awareness. So, this curriculum is designed to provide staff with information on policies and procedures regarding abuse, understand the consequences of abuse, neglect, and misappropriations, encourage staff to report abuse, and document any incidents. Again, we don't like to focus on things that are ugly in any profession, but we have to talk about it so that we can learn from it and just do better, right? That's the whole goal of anything, any level of training, is that we become better people, better human beings, better employers, better caregivers, whatever capacity you're tuning in from. We want you to just be better. We want your business to be better, right? All those different types of things. You want your family to be healthy in all areas. So we want to make sure that we just talk about these things and not sweep them under the rug. So, what is abuse? Abuse is defined as the willful infliction of injury, unreasonable confinement, intimidation, or punishment with resulting physical harm, pain, or mental anguish. There are different types of abuse. First one is emotional, sometimes called psychological abuse, can include caregivers saying hurtful words. They can be yelling, there could be threatening or repeated ignoring the person. Sexual abuse involves a caregiver forcing an older adult to watch or be part of sexual acts. Examples: sexual harassment, sexual coercion, sexual assault. Then there's physical abuse, intentional use of physical force that results in injury, pain, or harm, hitting, slapping, pushing or restraining someone inappropriately. Financial, economic abuse, controlling or misusing someone's financial resources, such as stealing money, restricting access to finances, or coercing financial decisions. And then domestic abuse, a pattern of controlling or violent behavior within a household, often involving intimate partners or family members. Now, I just want to go back to um, really the financial abuse, right, or economic. In my field so far, again, I've been in the caregiver field as a caregiver for over 30 years, but working in the capacity of a business or a person in leadership in the caregiving field, it's been close to about 20 years or so. And one of the things that I have seen most often, I really haven't experienced or had to report anybody for emotional abuse or even sexual abuse, even though I've heard of some things in other businesses. Um, but the place of employment, uh, where I have really seen it or had experienced it firsthand, was the financial or the economic abuse. And one of the things, none of the caregivers stole any money, but one did borrow money, right? And so the story went that the caregiver borrowed money from a client, a resident, whatever capacity you want to call them. And this is the story she said. She was like, hey, I need, my landlord is going to put me out. A family member came and busted a window. And if I don't pay $100, I'm going to be evicted. So she played on the heartstrings of this particular member, and he ended up giving her $100. Now she promised him that with her next check that she would return the money. So one pay period went by, she never gave him the money back. Second pay period went by, she never gave him the money back. So what ended up happening is he stopped eating. So every time this caregiver would work, he wouldn't eat any of her food because he thought that she would poison him or something. And so it got so bad that they end up reporting things to me. So it kind of climbed the food chain in terms of work, and it got back to me. And so when it got back to me, we, myself and a coworker, we went and met with him to get the story as to why he was not eating. And then it was at that point that he shared that he had loaned her money and what the money was loaned for. So we end up sitting down with the caregiver and like, okay, this is what he expressed, that you borrowed money from him and you have not paid him back. That's why he's not eating. And so, make a long story short, we end up having to fire this caregiver, um, and we end up, as a business, in good faith, we paid the client back the $100. Um, and so, I just wanted to share that story with you in terms of my experience with financial or economic abuse. Neglect. Neglect occurs when the caregiver does not try to respond to the person's needs. Examples: failure to provide food, leaving the resident or the patient or a loved one unattended for hours. Like for instance, you leave a person on the toilet for 30 minutes, an hour, when they've repeatedly said, hey, I'm done, I need your help, I'm finished, whatever, and you just kind of ignore their responses. Um, Another example is you leave a resident in the bed who's not ambulatory enough to get out of the bed into the wheelchair, etc. So you just leave that particular person in the bed for hours, sometimes even days. So those are some examples. Now, before we move on, one of the things I want to express is that no matter what type of abuse or neglect, it's intentional, right? Like if I said something mean to you in terms of emotional abuse, I meant to say it, right? Because my intention was to hurt your feelings. If I intended on doing something, if a caregiver intends on um, doing something sexual or whatever, they intended to do that, right? Emotional, I intended, right? Physical, I intended. If I hit you, if I slapped you, that is intentional. I meant to do those things. Neglect is the same way. I neglected you, I ignored you. It wasn't important to me, whatever the circumstances was, but I did it intentionally. So that's one of the things I want to kind of stick is that people would say, "Oh, I forgot. Um, I didn't mean to." No, you meant to do everything you said. You meant to do everything that you did, right? Like whether it was done out of anger, whether it was done out of frustration, you still meant to do it. Self neglect. A person with disabilities not taking care of themselves. A resident, a patient, or loved one choosing to not eat, shower, bathe, or take their medication. Now, self neglect is very hard for a caregiver. Um, it's hard to watch, right? It's very hard to watch someone who intentionally does not care about themselves or does not put forth the effort of caring, right? Like, okay, you haven't bathed for a week. Now, for the person who hasn't bathed, they're like, okay, so. But for the caregiver, you like, oh my goodness, I cannot take another day. This person smells so bad, right? Like their body odor is offensive. It makes my job hard because I don't even want to be in their presence. I don't even want them to come in mine because the body odor is that bad. So let me share let me share this story. So years ago when Kmart was here in Wisconsin, I early in my career as a business owner, I used to go to Kmart all the time and get money orders to pay like bills and stuff like that, right? And so I used to get the money orders all the time because they were like 69 cents. And it was like the cheapest in the city. And I'm like, okay, let me go get some money orders and do all those different types of things. I wasn't making a lot of money. So I would just be like, okay, let me get the money I do have. I want to make sure that it goes to where it goes. So I would get the money order, send off the bills, and not have any worry, right? I knew, okay, this money was gone. There was no checks involved, just none of those things, right? And so I'm standing in line in Kmart and I just smelled like this horrible smell. And so I'm standing in line and I'm like, what is that? So, the first thing you would do is you start checking yourself. You like, okay, so I'm all under my armpits. I'm like, what? Oh, inside my shirt? Like, that ain't me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the first thing you do is like, I know I'm not being that offensive with my body odor, right? And so it wasn't me. And so all of a sudden, it got stronger and stronger. And as I'm standing there, I'm starting to like look like I was about to vomit. right? So I'm like, right? And so I kind of stepped out of line because I started feeling sick to my stomach. So lo and behold, it's this woman behind me, and she smelled like death. If death had a smell, I have never smelt death, but I can imagine what death smelled like. It was her. Okay. And she smelled horrendous. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot even stay in this store. Like, she smelled that bad. And I always tell that story because I've never smelled anyone like that in my life who smelled that bad. Now we talking about that's just not a week of bathing. That's months or several weeks or even several months. It smelled like several years. And I brought it up because I, if I was a caregiver for her, I wouldn't be able to do my job at all, right? Because that type of self neglect from a person makes us as caregivers, right? It makes our job extremely hard. And a lot of times when you start complaining to upper management and things like that, they be like, "Oh, well, it's their right if they don't want to bathe." And then you're like, "No, it's not. It shouldn't be because I can't do my job." And not only that, it's offending others. So I feel like sometimes, we like to take the cop out road or the cop out way and say, hey, you know what? This person is grown. If they don't want to bathe, it's up to them. And we really want those in leadership and those in power to really put their foot down, right? Just really put their foot down. Like, hey, you cannot be a part of this agency. You cannot be a part of this community. You cannot, right? Even if it's a coworker, you cannot be a part of this coworker atmosphere if you're not loving yourself, right? We don't want anybody to neglect themselves. We want you to love yourself. And to me, and this is my personal opinion, you can write to me. I probably won't read your emails or anything like that, but I have a right to my opinion. To me, it's not love. It's not loving yourself. And this definition is so powerful to me because it says a person with a disability. Now, it doesn't necessarily, the person may not have a diagnosed disability, but obviously there's something that's off or something that's wrong as to why someone would choose not to bathe, right? Like, you would choose not to bathe. You would get up every day, put clothes on, a stinky body, and think that that's okay. Now, if anybody thinks that that is okay, then I feel like you need to talk to someone of a professional sense because it's not okay. It's not okay to offend others. It's just not. Okay, I'm done with my rant. We're moving on. Okay, the next one is exploitation or financial abuse. Happens when money or belongings are stolen. Some examples: forging checks, taking money, credit cards, changing names of wills and bank accounts. Um, Again, I just shared the story about the caregiver taking money. But one of the other things that happened, so here in Wisconsin, we call it food share. Some other places may call it food stamps. Some other places may call it EBT, link, whatever the case is, depends on where you are in the world in terms of getting assistance with food. So the caregiver, while her intentions were good, her actions were not. So what she would do is she would take the client's money. So let's say that all like two clients had $5. They would give her the $5. She would go to the store and get $5 worth of junk because this particular place, all of the members loved candy. They were like, they loved the sugar, right? And so she would go and get $5 worth of junk for this person, $5, candy and all that stuff for the other person. But she would pocket the $10 and use her food share money to pay for the candy. Now, if you're like, oh, well, okay, right? But what she was in fact doing was selling food stamps, if that makes sense. So while we look at it like it's a small thing, and we had to meet with her. This particular caregiver was wrote up. It got kind of ugly in the sense. But if this is, it was a part of the culture that she was around and had been around for a long time. So in her eyes, she didn't do anything wrong. And so I had to take a step back as a leader and put myself in her shoes and use that opportunity to educate, right? Um, Not so much slam the hammer down, but really take some time to educate. And what I mean by that is really getting the caregiver to understand, number one, ethics, right? Morals, and but importantly, company culture. Okay. So some companies, they may be like, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Some places may say, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But the particular place that that I'm speaking of, that wasn't part of our culture. We were taught the rule was we take nothing from the member. Absolutely nothing. No money, no gifts, no nothing. And so for her to cross that line, um, is what really got her in trouble because it was no, right? Absolutely nothing. We take absolutely nothing uh, from the member because just for those reasons, we don't want things misunderstood. We don't want any of the guardians or parents to have an issue or find fault. Just those types of things. So just explaining or reiterating policy, reiterating procedure, and reiterating company culture is key to everything, right? And so that's what this channel, this YouTube page, wherever you're watching it from, is dedicated to. Let's get back, right? Let's get back to setting a standard. Let's get back to keeping that boundary line where it should be and not crossing that boundary line out of need. So I really felt like the caregiver did it out of need, right? She needed the $10 in cash to do other things, right? But in the eyes of the law, it was considered, right, actually illegal because she really was selling food share for cash, right? Food benefits for cash. So we have to make sure, as leaders, as caregivers, that we don't cross the boundary line. Whatever boundaries are in place, we don't cross those lines. So just something I just want to leave you with as you think about it, right? We don't want to cross those lines. All right, this next part of the training kind of highlights some things that happened. So it's almost been 2 years now. This story had hit our local news, and so it kind of shook. Right, it shook the caregiver community like apples falling from a tree. Right, it shook the caregiver community. It got everybody talking. It got everybody, questioning. It got everybody rewriting policy. It got everybody back in training. It got everybody on their P's and Q's about caregiving and the ugly things that can happen, right? So I'm not highlighting the facility, but I really love to teach from the video as a training opportunity. Um, So, how important is it? How important it is to report, right? When we see allegations of abuse. So, I want you to just take the next several minutes and watch the video, and we'll come back to it. We'll kind of start and do a discussion in the next several minutes. I think the video is maybe about 3 or 4 minutes in length, so it's not long at all. But I really want you to hone in on it because we're going to be talking, really bringing out some key points. All right, so hopefully you got a chance to really hone in on the video. And that was like the second piece to it, right? It was like the second piece to it. Um, so I just want to point out quite a few things from the video because, like I said, it shook the caregiver community. I think for me, um, from all levels, right, in all aspects. And for me, I kind of want to look at every angle of the video because when things happen, any allegation of abuse in any capacity, it affects everybody. People think, oh, it's just ABC facility. No, it's not ABC facility. It affects everybody. Okay. So one of the issues um, that they first brought up was unqualified and untrained staff. Unqualified and untrained staff. And we're like, what is happening? Right? Unqualified, untrained. Now, I'm a trainer, right? I'm a trainer. I'm a state trainer. And the idea of somebody going into a situation like that is terrifying, right? Like outside of what you've seen, right? The member was outside. It actually looked like not one but two caregivers were outside, which means that this particular member is challenging in some capacity. So let's be honest about that. It's more likely challenging in some capacity for two caregivers to be outside with this particular member, and one strikes the member. Now, the fact, whether it's true or not, again, allegedly, there is unqualified and untrained staff. I, if I was the staff and I had to walk in a situation like that, I would quit. I would finish my shift and never ever return. Right? Unqualified, untrained staff. So this is to the whole entire caregiver community. Don't you ever walk into any place and you're not prepared. You're not qualified. Because even those of us that are qualified can walk into a situation where we feel unprepared. So there's a difference between being unprepared and unqualified, right? Like you can learn some things, but not to be prepared. I don't have any weapons to use in terms of training. I don't have nothing. Like I haven't I didn't even learn CPR. I didn't even learn anything about their rights. I didn't even learn any of the terminology, any of the abbreviations. I didn't even learn, uh, right, anything about fire plans or standard precautions. Like I didn't learn anything, right? I have no training at all. And I walk in someplace and I am unqualified to be there. Okay? I am unqualified to be there. I mean, I get it. Why would you took the job? Because you have a family, you have bills, right? All those different types of things. But to put you, that's like putting you on the moon without a suit, right? And you're just like floating in space. And eventually you're going to die because of the difference in air pressure and all of that kind of stuff. Like, what? I don't have none of my equipment. I'm not prepared for any of this stuff. It is ludicrous. It is madness. Okay, one of the other allegations, again, allegedly, is that workers abusing drugs. Now, if you see me and I have the camera off, I am literally scratching my face and head right now because the worker abusing drugs. It never said what kind, right? We don't know if it was distinctly marijuana. We don't know if it was prescription medication. We don't know if it was crystal meth, fentanyl. We don't know any of those things. And what you mean to tell me that you have the audacity, the unmitigated gall, in the words of my grandmother, to show up and pull out your lighter and I'm just going to use marijuana for instance, and pull out marijuana and light it and smoke it at work, which means that you don't care about nobody but yourself. You cannot not get high for the duration of this trip. I mean, this because I just went somewhere, I'm sorry. For the duration of this shift, you cannot not, right? Like, okay, if this shift is 6 hours, you have to smoke during these 6 hours in order for you to function, to be able to take care of these vulnerable people. I don't know. I'm just trying to understand it. I don't know about you, but that environment seems so intense that they made it outside. Two caregivers had a hard time getting the member de-escalated. And I don't know about you, but I need all of my wits about myself. We don't know if that particular member was violent towards the care staff. Forget what the care staff is doing. Was the member violent? Right? Like, who was recording? Because obviously somebody was recording because it made it to the news. I need all of my faculties. I need to be in sound mind, right? I don't need to be faced with an allegation of abuse and then they drug test me and found out that I am right, was under the influence of a substance. I don't have a chance to beat any case, to fight any crime. I'm automatically seen guilty because of being reckless in the workplace. Now, whatever you choose to do, do it. That's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is doing it on the clock. That's what I'm talking about. Because I don't know about you, but I know several people who've lost their license. Lost their license as a could be a nurse, lost it could be a CNA, could be a phlebotomist, could be a medical assistant, whatever capacity, you will lose your certification if you have allegations of abuse or neglect because that's considered neglect. You're under the influence. You cannot possibly be doing your job adequately. So there will be some net level of neglect at some point. Okay. Don't write me because I'm not reading it. All right. Unprofessional behavior or dress. That was the thing. Said, hey, they just showed up to work in anything they felt like putting on that day. And hey, I'm here. I showed up. I spent a considerable amount of time early on in my life as a about 17. I started in the military. When you transform, I like to always say transform because I love Transformers. But when you transform and put on that uniform, you become a different person. And we don't even think about that, right? As caregivers, when we put those scrubs on, we don't think that we're transforming, but you really should be transforming. Okay? You're not just you're not just Samantha. You're Samantha, the care provider. You're Samantha, the direct care professional, right? A uniform says something. It says something to me, right? When I put my scrubs on, I take on a different persona. Not that it's fake, but it's serious. I want it to be serious. It should be serious, not for play. I'm not putting this on because it's fashionable. I'm putting this on because right? I'm letting you know that I am serious about my craft. I'm serious about my profession. I'm serious about what it is that I'm doing. I take this part very serious. Next one, sexual assault. Like what? It says, we had stories or heard reports about staff having sexual contact with the members. What? Again, we don't like to look at the ugly stuff. Does it happen? Yes, it does. Right? I always tell people all members that we take care of aren't 90 with a walker. Some of them can be as young as 18, 19, 21, 22. They may operate as if, you know, they don't need care at all in any capacity. But on some level, a doctor or some professional has deemed otherwise, right? We, years ago, we had a female member and she suffered from seizures. So, but when she got mad, she was stripped naked. And she had, let's just say, everything in all the right places, right? Everything in all the right places. And it was impossible for the members not to look, right? It was impossible. When you try to cover her up, she would get mad and throw the blanket to the ground. One time she even made it out of the house and was standing like in the middle of the sidewalk. And everybody was stopping and looking. And if they had phones back then, uh, I would have been on the news too. Like I'd have been that caregiver on the news, like client escape nude. Like I'd have been on the news at that point myself because I just didn't know like what to do. Like, what do you do? And she was strong and stubborn. And so, um, what do you do? Right? And so I had to consistently talk with the staff. I had to consistently talk with the other male members of the facility so that no boundary line was crossed, right? No boundary line was crossed. So we don't like to think about that. We really don't. Um, I used to have a member, um, he would invite all of my female caregivers to get into bed with him, right? So we don't like to look at it from neither side. So when we talk about the ugly side of caregiving, it can be on the member side as well as the caregiver side, right? It could be because people are people. Um, so just those types of things, like caregivers getting um, their behind slapped by a male member, um, and what's the recourse? You know, do we press charges on someone who is diagnosed with dementia? Probably not, right? So just all of those things that we kind of, as caregivers, may suffer in silence or just have to turn the other cheek about. But in this news broadcast, it brought out some of the ugly things that may be going on in some of these facilities. Management not aware or was aware, right? It says they were telling the management, but were the management reporting? You know, um, one thing I teach is I tell caregivers, tell on yourself, right? Tell on yourself. If you've fallen short, hey, I forgot. I forgot to give um, John his medication. I really apologize. And make that call. Hey, I just left a few minutes ago. I'm in the car, but I forgot to give John his medicine. I'm really, really sorry about that. So that, you know, it doesn't go and say, hey, she forgot. Sarah forgot. She forgot to give John his meds. And then now there's a whole domino effect, So again, allegedly, did the management not, right? In those instances, you got to take it a little bit higher. Did we do an investigation? Was anybody wrote up? We don't know. All we see is one side of the story. We haven't got deep into the story, right, to interview all the parties that be. But again, I love it because this gives us an opportunity to chat. Medication diverting, omission, errors, falsifying documentation. So, taking residents' medication, right? They have some oxycodone and they supposed to get it. They never got it because the caregiver took it. Or they didn't give the meds out at all. Okay. And then they were documenting that they were, but they didn't. So you got this whole ethical issue of falsifying documentation and illegal issue at this point also, right? The other piece was no food, no clothing. Said that their needs were not being met. Say, hey, we were buying food out of our own pocket. There was no food. And I always ask, if as a caregiver, if you felt like management wasn't doing anything, you could have took it a step further and made the call to the state or to the powers that be. Right? Sometimes we're part of the problem. Right? Sometimes we are a part of the problem, not the solution. We're part of the problem. Lack of proper reporting, right? I just said it. We didn't take it further. We just sit at work and complain. You've been a part of that culture before. People just complain. They're not doers at all. They're just complainers. I don't know about you, but I hate a complainer. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Neighborhood stakeholders, slowness of involvement. Now, if it's a previous video to the one that you've seen, and one of the neighbors was saying, hey, in the previous video, oh, it was always something going on over there. Okay, well, don't wait till it hit the news before you get involved, right? If you're reaching out and you're calling the owner and saying, hey, I'm not sure if you're aware, but such and such is happening at the facility, and then you still continue to see it, maybe you need to make the call, right? And so you're the stakeholder. You're the other owner on the block, right? You're the other renter. You're the business owner. It involves everybody. But we like to point the fingers. Oh, it's them. It's not us. It's them. No, it's us too. Because we could, if we intervene right the first time, maybe, we could have stopped this particular client or member from getting hit or abused in any way. Maybe we could have stopped the facility from being shut down. Maybe we could have, right? We could have intervened and really got some things. Maybe that owner really needed some help and felt overwhelmed. I don't know. But what I am saying is we're all to blame because it takes a village. It takes all of us regardless of color. We're caregivers, right? The only color you should see is the scrub color. So you got on blue scrubs, that's all I see. Purple scrubs, that's all I see. Right? That's all we should see when we have on that uniform. In the Army, because that's the branch of service I was in, when we put that Army fatigue on, that's all we see. We don't have time to be worried about if you're black or white. We don't have that kind of time. We got to build a road or, right? Or respond to some kind of disaster. or go overseas for training. We don't have time to be worried about nothing else. Okay? What happens if the home is closed? Guess what? People lose their jobs. The members have to be displaced. It's their home. So now they have to move away from their home, right? Now we have an empty house on the block, and possibly the house is boarded up or whatever, right? Now we have an eyesore as a stakeholder, okay? Now, if the house is rented, the landlord is affected. He doesn't get any rent. So he doesn't have what he needs to take care of his family either. So it's a domino effect. It affects everybody. How are the actions, how the actions affect other people, right? Because we don't like to look at it. It's their problem. It's the issue for them. No, it's the issue for us, right? It's the issue for us. We need more caregivers in the field, okay? But if we don't start restoring some integrity to it, nobody's going to want to work. Nobody's going to want to apply. Nobody's going to want to stay in the field because we don't put any integrity back in it, right? We come to work under the influence. We don't have any training, nor do we go seek any out. We just say, hey, it's a job. I'm going to do it because I'm getting paid. All those different types of things. It affects everybody. So how do you spot the warning signs, right? Of maybe somebody has been abused or is being mistreated in any way. Warning signs of abuse vary by type, but often include physical injuries like bruises, burns, or fractures with unlikely explanations. So if you go to work and you see that this particular member has a black eye, don't just act like you don't see it. Okay, what happened? What happened to Joseph? I don't know. Well, I left him last night. He didn't have a black eye, but today he does. Right? Some things just don't sit well. Emotional and behavior changes, such as withdrawal, anxiety, fearfulness, or low self-esteem, may also indicate abuse. Right? Like their personality has changed. Like what's up with her now? Right? Like what's going on with Tasha? She used to be so lively and bubbly, and now all of a sudden she's withdrawn. You know, she's fearful all the time. You know, those types of things. Signs of sexual abuse include difficulty walking, unexplained injuries in genital areas, or inappropriate sexual knowledge. So, like things they talk about that they didn't talk about before. Like, wait, you've never mentioned anyone's penis, right? Now all of a sudden, that's all you seem to talk about. It's like, okay, what has brought this on? Because you wasn't talking about it the other 3 years, right? That I've been your caregiver. But when Frank started, now all of a sudden you're talking about a penis, right? You know, have you and Frank, you know what I mean? So it's just some of those things. Financial abuse may be evident through sudden financial struggles, unpaid bills, or restricted access to funds. Right? Like, why does your daughter keep your debit card? Like, how long has she had your debit card? 6 months? Oh, it's these stack of bills on this table every time I come by to do the laundry, they keep growing. Why haven't these bills been paid? Oh, my son, he said he was going to pay them. Oh, okay. And find out there's nothing getting paid, right? Neglect can manifest as malnutrition, poor hygiene, untreated medical conditions, or unsafe living conditions. Like, okay, wait, how long has she been in the bed? Because she's kind of getting a bed sore. Is these the same pajamas she's had on for like a week? Right? Oh, she's lost a lot of weight since I seen her last. Now, I'm not talking about some kind of um, disease or condition. I'm just talking about sheer neglect. Okay. In children, frequent school absences, fear of going home, or developmental delays may signal abuse. Elderly or dependent adults may show unexplained injuries, isolation, overmedication, or fear of caregivers. Recognizing these signs early and seeking help from professionals can prevent further harm. Reporting procedures. All suspected or confirmed cases of abuse must be reported to the appropriate authorities, such as supervisors, social services, or law enforcement. Reports should be documented accurately, including observations, dates, and any statements from the victim or witnesses. Now, it's important, right, when we talk about reporting, it says suspected or confirmed cases, right? And document them accurately, including what you see. And then if there's any statements from victims or witnesses, we try to record those or have them record those as accurately as possible. Now, one of the other issues or things we need to talk about is the confidentiality aspect of it. Staff must maintain confidentiality when reporting abuse. Now, you shouldn't be like, girl, I had to, I had to, I went to the supervisor on Nancy. Every time I work behind Nancy, she just, oh, Tommy just be having too many bruises and stuff. Nothing. You should not be discussing any of that for somebody to go back and tell Nancy, and then Nancy is, could potentially harm Tommy further. So we want to make sure that we do things confidentially. Um, Ensuring that information is shared only with authorized personnel. Whistleblower protections are in place to safeguard staff members who report concerns in good faith. Investigation and follow up. Once an abuse report is made, management or designated authorities will conduct an investigation. If abuse is confirmed, appropriate disciplinary action, intervention, or legal steps will be taken. Support services will be provided to affected individuals. Now that's if people are doing their due diligence, right? When it comes to reporting allegations of abuse, neglect, in any capacity, we want to make sure that we are reporting, reporting. But for those of us in positions like mine, I have to do an investigation, right? I have to. But I also have to protect the member. So if that means a lot of times what will happen if it's a caregiver who did, you know, suspected of abuse and neglect, that caregiver will be immediately put on probation, suspended, sometimes even fired while the investigation is going on. So just some of those interventions may be a part of what's happening. Then we go to employee responsibilities. It says all staff are responsible for maintaining a safe and respectful environment. Any failure to report abuse may result in disciplinary action. Employees must uphold ethical standards and comply with all policies regarding the protection of individuals under their care. Now, at this point, I want you to scan the QR code and take a short quiz. And so I just want you to test your knowledge and just come back to it, right, when you're done. So you can pause the video, scan the QR code, and test your knowledge, your abuse awareness knowledge. All right, I cannot move forward unless I discuss some resources. So some of the resources, as I kind of, was putting some of these pieces together, if you want to just learn about abuse any further, you can go to the National Institute on Aging, Wisconsin Department of Health Services Division of Public Health, and go over their misconduct definitions. You can reach out to the CDC. They have a lot in terms of elder abuse and things like that. If in your local area, find out where you can go for your local area. Um, but it's, or even to the local police if it's that bad, but just reaching out, right? And so, one of the things I want to talk about, because during the pandemic, it was reports of how domestic abuse had went up tremendously, right? It went up so high. Childhood abuse was reported to be going up, and just a lot, and people were just under vast amounts of stress. And that was one of the reasons that they said that abuse had went up, because of stress of finances, whatever the area of stress was. And so one of the things I want to just talk about really briefly is, for any of us, all of us as caregivers, is burnout, right? Like, how do we not stretch ourselves so thin, or we feel like we're stretched so thin because of our positions, our jobs, or whatever may be going on? And so before I left my job, where I was in charge of a lot of caregivers, did a lot of things for caregivers on an executive level, I noticed, I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice that. Let me stop telling that lie. I didn't notice. My family noticed. So one day I went to work and I had on one outfit. I remember coming home, getting undressed on the side of the bed, and just falling into the bed. Got up the next day, showered and everything, went to the side of the bed, put that outfit back on, and walked out the door. I got to work and my boss said, "Hey, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay. Why?" She said, "You had that outfit on yesterday." I'm like, "Oh, did I?" Didn't even know. Didn't even know that I had reached my level of burnout. I was completely fried. My children noticed because I was mean and quick tempered, right? So I want to prevent any of you from going through what could have been catastrophic for me as a parent, catastrophic for me as a leader, catastrophic for me, right? As a wife, I, it got so bad. So let me share. I'm being very transparent now. So you don't see my face, you just hear my voice. But I'm being very transparent with this story that I'm about to tell. So during this same time, we had a bully. Okay, we had a member who would just bully the rest of the members. He was a bully. Every time he would walk past, he would like put his fist up like he was about to punch someone, and they were so afraid of him. He would just, if he got in their presence, they would just like flinch back in fear, like cover their faces like he was about to hit them. So one day, again, I was tired. I was overworked. I was stressed. He walks past one of the members and kicks his foot. Now, this particular member, he had the biggest feet. I think he wore like a size 16 or something. It was just, he had huge feet. And can you imagine somebody kicking you with a size 16 shoe? I wear a size 8.5. Double my size. And you done kick somebody with those big old shoes? And so he kicked one of the guys. He kicked him so hard in like the leg or something. And he just like, bent over and I was like rubbing his leg. And I got so mad because I was burnt out. I was stressed. I was overworked. I stood up and I said, that is it. Oh man, if you hit somebody else, I'm going to knock the hell out of you. He jumped up. Now, I'm 5'4" for the record. He was about 6'2" or maybe 6'3". He said, you ain't gonna do nothing. I'ma beat your ass, Miss Anderson. I said, you ain't gonna do nothing. Oh man, bring it on. So I started putting my fists up. And so if any of you are young enough to remember uh, Sanford and Son, I had put my fist up, right, like that, and so I was calling his bluff. I was like, "Bring it on, bring it! I dare you to swing at me. You swing at me, I'ma knock your old butt out." Now, clearly, I would have lost. Okay, he was twice as strong, 2 times as tall, right? I clearly would have lost the fight. But I was so mad, I wasn't thinking clearly. I was so stressed that I wasn't thinking clearly, right? I could have lost everything that day. I initiated the fight, right? Like I started the fight with what I said. I initiated the whole incident by thinking I'm Mrs. Tough Guy. And I'm like, what was I thinking? So once I said, bring it on, old man, bring it on. He sat down and kind of gave me that wave, like, the hell with you, right? But what if he'd have stood up and we'd have been fighting? Or should I say I'd have been getting beat up that day? Right? Like I'd have been getting beat up. But I was so mad and wasn't thinking straight from being burnt out. So one of the things I want us to do as caregivers is really think about what your breaking point is. Are you at your breaking point? Okay? And what are some things that we can do so we don't get to that breaking point like me, where I could have lost my job. I could have lost my career. I could have lost all my certifications and all the things that I worked so hard to get in one incident. All it takes is one time for you to lose your temper. That's all it takes is one incident, right? That's all it takes. I'm going to teach her a lesson. I'm going to leave her on this toilet till she just can't sit here no more. What? We have to really think about it, get ourselves back in alignment. So how do we do that? Number one, ask for help. Help, help, help. Help, 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 help. Right? Raise your hand. I need help. I need help. I need help. Ask for help. That's one thing we do not like to do as caregivers. We are superhumans. At least that's what we think we are. We're not superhumans. You better ask for help. Raise your hand and say, "Hey, I need help. I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I got some things going on at home and I can really use a friend, a listening ear." Give yourself permission to take breaks. If you're at that place where you can leave the facility and take a break, do it. I don't care if you're just sitting outside, listening to some music or something for 30 minutes, right? If you can't leave, but you do get a break, find you a quiet place, away, away from friends, away from everybody, and just clear your mind. Give yourself a level of peace to be able to do that. Take care of yourself. Don't skip your own doctor's appointments, right? Because you're too busy. Don't skip your own, right? Whatever appointment you got. You're taking care of your own business because you're too busy. Exercise, eat well, get enough sleep. That's one thing I was not doing, was going to bed. And then I wake up groggy and I got a short fuse. And if I'm eating, I'm not eating the right stuff. I started to notice my skin was changing. Just all kind of stuff. Get up 15 minutes earlier and use that time to just sit by yourself. I used to look at whenever I got a chance to be around my grandmother. She had lived out of town for most of my life, but whenever I would get a chance to see her, I would wonder why older people got up so early in the morning. Now I understand. She would get up before everybody. And by the time you get up, she's sitting at the table. She got her a cup of coffee, reading the newspaper. And I understand it now. I didn't get it then. But she was at such peace in mind. Right? That's what we don't do. We wake up and we jump on our phones. That's not peace of mind. How about just wake up, get you a cup of tea, you know, and just look out the window, watch the birds, look at the sun rising, whatever it is, but not just get busy, right? Not waking up busy, because then that doesn't put the right things on your mind. So you can meditate, you can pray, you can stretch, make a list of things you want to do as activities. It could be for the weekend. Like, you know what? I get paid on Friday. I gotta pay this bill, that bill. But maybe I'll go buy myself some new shoes, you know? Or maybe, me and the family will go to, like Dave and Buster's or something. Just whatever, right? A list of activities. Communicate with others, right? Share your frustrations and the funny moments. I laugh a lot. I laughed a lot when I was in direct frontline care. I laughed a lot. As a parent, I laughed a lot. My kids are funny, right? My husband is funny. I laughed a lot and I still laugh a lot. I told you I think I'm funny, but I laugh a lot. And I think that's what keeps a lot of the stress off because I find something funny in every day, right? When your life kind of mellows out, right? Maybe you need a vacation to mellow out. You know, you can't work two, three, four, five, six jobs. It's impossible. Your body can't do it. But take some time to mellow out. You know, uh, we would say chill, just chill out, right? Take some time to just chill out. Okay, go for a vacation. Just when it's your off day, be off. You don't have to take that extra overtime. Not all the time. This time, just say I can't do it. Sorry, I can't do it. I'm going to use this time to regroup. I'm going to use this time to mellow myself out. I'm going to use this time to clear my mind. Whatever it is that you need to do, make the time to do it. Okay? If you need to find a therapist, find a therapist. I'm an advocate for talking to somebody. Okay? If you need to talk to me, reach out. Okay? All right. Now, I want to leave you with this poem that I wrote some years ago because, again, we're talking about abuse and neglect in all capacities, whether you are an abuse survivor yourself or you're taking care of somebody that has been abused or neglected in some capacity. So, this is dedicated uh, to some of them or some of you. And it goes, abuse has been my noose, choking me so I won't speak or hardly even breathe. Others have watched me hang there in silence, too afraid of abuse's violence, cowering in the corner, hiding in the shadows. Will abuse come with more fellows? Abuse has been my noose. This the rope is too tight. My eyes look fright. Scared of who I am or might be, afraid of stepping away from me. Abuse has been my noose. Take your hands off the rope. Cut me loose. The master has set me free. Run, run. Don't look back or turn around. If I do, I will see the noose on the ground, fitted for my throat, guaranteed to make me choke. I'm free, been bought with a price, paid top dollar for me with his life. By Rosalind Anderson. Hope you liked it. All right, the last thing, to receive an official copy. Now, all the trainings on this channel, if they're on this channel, they're free. Okay? But if you need something official, then you would just scan the QR code and pay the $20 for us to send you an official certificate for this abuse and neglect training. If you have any questions or require further assistance, please contact us at caregiverchattv@gmail.com or reach out to us by phone and you will get me directly. So we want everybody to check out the channel, subscribe, and please share with other caregivers. So I want to again thank you for another opportunity to spend some time with you here at Caregiver Chat TV as we learn to laugh together, learn together, right? We want to do all those things together. We don't want to do them by ourselves. We're in this thing together. I need you and you need me. Okay? So, again, if you need any more information or need us to assist you with anything, please feel free to reach out. Okay? We laugh, we learn, and care with one another. All right? Have a good day. Bye bye.